This one goes out to the Supabase users who've been sending in loads of questions about how to build backend functions and APIs for Supabase when you might not have that much coding experience, or you want to try building backend cloud functions that use NPM packages and things that go beyond edge functions. So here's a pretty simple Supabase database I have, where I have a users table with a name and an email. As I said, pretty simple. However, here's how we're going to build a complex backend that emails the user welcoming them to our product. We're going to be doing that using a webhook. So here I am in Supabase. I'm going to go over to webhooks here and create a new webhook. We can give this webhook a name. I'll call it welcome. And the conditions for firing that webhook, we're going to have it so when we add a new user, so I'm going to go on insert, and our webhook is going to fire off an HTTP request with a post method to a URL. But what backend URL is that? That is where BuildShip comes in. Let's hop over to BuildShip real quick. So here we are in BuildShip. It's a platform that will allow you to create powerful backend cloud functions, APIs, schedule jobs, all of this visually with the ease of no code and the power of code. So we're going to build a trigger for our workflow. We've got a project here. I'm going to add a trigger. And this is going to be a REST API call trigger. Got a couple more options, but we're going to go with REST API call. So once I click on add trigger, I'm going to create a brand new workflow with our first node. And this is the REST API call node. Now let's call this welcome user. And the method is going to be a post request. Cool. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to have a workflow that when a user signs up to our product, we're going to send them an email welcoming them to our app. So we're going to go ahead and click here on the add button and use one of the many templates built into BuildShip. So this first one is going to be a resend one. I'm going to have an integration that sends an email via resend. And there we go. So this resend node is going to allow us to send an email to a specified user. And here's where the cool stuff comes in. So the first thing we need to add is our API key for resend. And I've got one built in here. So I'm going to go over to secrets and pick the resend key, but you can add your own if you haven't got it yet. I'm just going to click on that. Then the from is going to be team@buildship.com. To field is going to come from our REST API call. So we'll grab from our request the body, and specifically the record from Supabase and the email address of that new user. Then the subject is going to be welcome to the new app. All right, now let's dive in and modify our node a little bit so that it fits our needs a little better. We can do this by clicking on the code button here. And so the nodes are written in JavaScript. You can use your NPM packages to do so. And you've got the ability to modify this as you need. So we can see what we've got here. We're setting up resend, adding our attachments if we have any. We're not going to send any. And then we just send our email with the from to subject HTML, which come from our parameters. But of course, we want to modify these parameters a little bit because we want to be able to add in the name of the user. So let's hop into our parameters tab here and do some modifying. First of all, we don't really need an HTML parameter anymore, so I'm going to go ahead and remove it because we're going to be writing the HTML ourselves. Next, I'm going to add a new field, and let's call it name. We're going to label it new user's name. There we go. The type is going to be a string. We're going to make it required, and that should do it. Now, if we save and we come back out here to our workflow, we can add that new user's name directly from the request. So we'll go on variables, request, body of the request, dot record, because we're getting the Supabase record, and the name. And there we go. Now we've got access in our code to the new user's name. Still a couple more modifications we need to do. So let's hop back into the code. Now that we don't have an HTML parameter anymore, we're going to replace this with name. And we need to define an HTML. So we're going to hop down here, write in const HTML equals to, and use template literals for this. So I'm going to make this an H1 welcome name. Close that H1. Add a P element. We're thrilled to have you in new app. Not the most descriptive email, but y'all get the point. So that HTML is done. We can go ahead and save our node, and nearly done. What we need to do next is have a return value. We need to let Supabase know that everything worked. So I'm going to add a return node here, make the status code be okay, and there we go. We're ready to ship our workflow. So I'm going to go ahead and click on ship. Great. Now we've got an endpoint URL that we can give back to Supabase. So let's switch over. So back here in Supabase, I'm going to make the method be post. I'm going to put in the URL of our users, and there we go. Let's create our webhook. Now, in order to test this, I'm going to actually enable logging. So back in BuildShip, I'm going to bring up the log monitor here, turn on the live functionality, and hop back over to Supabase and try adding a user. So I'm going to go to my table editor here, click on users, and insert a new name. I insert a new row. The ID is going to be generated. Default is now. The name is going to be Ramon. And the email is going to be ramon@buildship.com. Save that. And if all goes well, our workflow endpoint will be triggered. So here we are back in BuildShip, and check it out. We've got logs. So if we take a look, I've expanded our success log here. And if we scroll down, we can see our log with our body. And there's our record, email ramon@buildship.com and name Ramon. So now we've confirmed that our Supabase workflow is firing off webhooks. And we've set this up with little to no code. How cool is that? So there you have it. Stay tuned for more videos where we make even more cool stuff with the apps that you know and love. See you next time.